All right, so now that we've talked about calculating measures of central tendency, kind of where the middle of our data is, and some measures of spread, so kind of give us an idea of how spread out our data is, we want to take a look at a data piece in relationship to the rest of the data in terms of where it's positioned, right? Sometimes above or below the mean. Sometimes, where is 50% of our data sitting? It gives us some idea of when we get a piece of data from a distribution, how likely was it that we got it? Is it unusual? Does it make sense according to the rest? So that kind of thing. So we wanted to find out where a data piece is positioned. And the first thing we're going to look at are what are called quartiles, right? And quartiles are just sort of quick comparisons. Take one data piece and compare it to the rest quickly, right? And quartiles are basically measured out of 25%, right? Because we're going to line up all of our data, and then we're going to divide the data sets into 4 equal parts, right? So line up our data in order and just start cutting it into fourths, right? So half of our data would be less than this value, and half of our data would be more than this value. And then you could talk about this in fourths, right? A fourth of our data would be less than this value. 3/4 of our data would be greater than that same value, right? And then same thing for over here. It's a fourth this way, 3/4 this way. There's a lot of different ways you can look at this, right? But we're cutting it into fourths, which is why it's called quartiles, right? Quarters. Now, at each piece of our quartile, right? So we're going to have a minimum and a maximum value. So our minimum value is the lowest value, right? So 100% of our data pieces are going to be there or higher than that. And then our maximum value bookends our data. That's going to be our highest value. All of our data either is at that value or less than that. The median we've talked about already. The median is the measure of central tendency. Lets us know where the center of our data is. And the median is what we use when a distribution is going to be skewed left or skewed right. And that's because, or if we have outliers, because the median is less affected by outliers than the mean is. So if we have some unusual data pieces, or if we know that our distribution is got a few, not really necessarily super unusual pieces, but just kind of creates a histogram that's going to be skewed one way or the other, then we're going to use the median. And so breaking our data up into these 4 parts makes even more sense then. Right, so the median is that value where half of our data is above and below it. And then this first, right, so where our data, where a fourth of our data is less than and 3/4 greater than, what that value is called our Q1, right? That's going to mark our first quarter, the end of our first quarter. The median kind of marks the end of our second quarter, so sometimes it's called Q2. And then this value that you see here, Q3, kind of marks the end of our third quarter. And then the max marks the end of our fourth quarter. The minimum marks the beginning of our first, right? So anyway, that's kind of what we're going to do with our data. So here, I randomly selected 17 students who have a personal credit card. I asked them how much their January credit card purchases were. And here's the data rounded to the nearest dollar, right? So with this data set, we want to come up with what's called our 5-number summary, right? Our 5-number summary is our minimum. It's our Q1. It's our median, sometimes called Q2, Q3, and our max, right? Why is it called a 5-number summary? Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers here, right? So we got to line up, we got to organize our data, then find the median, and then find the median of the median, right? So let's line them up. So we've got what? A 28, a 40, a 60. Oh, before our 60, we've got a 58, and then a 95, and then two 102s, and I'm going to have to make this smaller. Then where? 105, no, sorry, not yet. We got a 120, a 124. I was writing all this out and forgot that it was typed out. So anyway, line up our data. Here it is. And then start finding, so find our median first, right? Median is the middle value, right? So count up all of our data pieces, right? How many do we have? Well, there's 1, 2, 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns with one piece missing, so that should give us 17 data pieces, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 17 means that we're going to have a median value where 8 of our values are less than that and 8 of our values are higher than that. So just count to 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That means this is our median. Or you can mark them off on both ends until you get to the center, right? So our median is 120. Okay, now that we've found our median, we want to take the bottom half and find the median again. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 data pieces. We don't want to include the median in this. And so halfway between would be right there, right? We got 4 data pieces on the left, 4 data pieces on the right, which means that our Q1, this is going to be our Q1 number, right? Sits between 60 and 95. So we got to average those guys, right? So this is going to be 155 divided by 2, which should give us 77.5. And this is our Q1, right? Obviously, this is our minimum. This is our maximum. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So our Q3 is going to fall somewhere in between 160 and 141. So we find the average of those two. Which gives us 150.5. And so that's our 5-number summary, right? So the minimum is 28. Q1 is 77.5, Q2 or the median is 120, Q3 is 150.5, and the max is 215. Okay? As seen here, a little bit easier to read. All right, that's how we go through and find it. Okay? Now, when we're using the median and the 5-number summary to kind of describe our data in terms of where the center is and how it's spread out, we haven't talked about standard deviation yet, but we use the interquartile range to talk a little bit about how spread out at least the middle 50% of our data is, right? So the middle half, and when we talk about 50%, we're talking about the number of data pieces, not their value, but the number of those data pieces. So half of our data pieces, the middle half, if we line them up, there's going to be a middle number of data pieces. The middle half of our data pieces, right, are going to lie in this interquartile range. And the idea behind the interquartile range is to let us know how spread out that middle half is. Okay? And so to find that, the middle half, right, Q3 marks the end of our third quarter, Q1 marks the end of our first quarter, so Subtracting Q3 minus Q1, we get right in that middle 50%, right? So that's our IQR. So our interquartile range for our credit card purchases there is going to be Q3 minus Q1. So we take 150.5 minus 77.5. And we get 73. So our middle 50% is spread out over $73. Okay? That's the idea, and here's the calculation again, a little bit easier to see. Right? And just lets us know again that our middle 50% of our credit card purchases are spread out over $73. All right? So this suggests you could even look at it as the amount of credit card purchases in the middle portion of the data set vary by at most $73, right? Some of them will fall less, in that smaller sort of area, that smaller range. Okay? All right, your turn. Find the 5-number summary, right? So when we get to the data set, pause the video. Start it back up, and you'll have the answers to check to see if your work is okay, right? So here's our data set. This is the miles I drove over the past 8 days. Go ahead and find the 5-number summary, the interquartile range, and then answer these 2 questions. 25% of the data lies below what number, and 75% of the data lies below what number? Okay? So go ahead, stop the video, start it back up when you have all of these, and see how you did. Okay, what did you come up with? So here's the data in listed in order. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we got an average for the median. So it's going to be 79 over 2, or 39.5. So that's our median, right? And then our Q1 should fall right there. So again, we got to find the average. And then Q3 will fall right there. Kind of running out of room here. So we got to find the average of 63 and 55. 118 divided by 2, or 59. And then, of course, we have our max here and a minimum here. So our 5-number summary. Our minimum is 5. Our Q1 is 20. Our median is 39.5. Our Q3 is 59. And our max is 81. Okay? And so that's our conversation on quartiles. It does lead us into another way to show our data in terms of a graph or a quick sketch of our distribution, which will come up in a little bit later in another video.